Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Now, with most of the world ravaged by the scourge and scare of COVID-19, I'm sure you were wondering what on earth are those guys going to talk about on the show tonight. Well, let me tell you something. There's still a lot of sport to talk about. This is ZiFM Sport on a Monday. Nothing is different here. We are not quarantined yet, so we'll keep reporting what's happening out of the world of sport. In the studio, Mike Madora, Alice Bunjira, my name is Barry Manandi, and our producer is here as always, Sean Tafirinyika. What can you look forward to all on the home front? Cricket, Zimbabwe Cricket and Cricket Ireland have agreed to postpone the planned 6-match men's series between the two sides, scheduled to be played in Zimbabwe next month. This coming just a couple of days after county sides Durham and Derbyshire cut short their tour of Zimbabwe without a ball being bowled.
In international sport, Sharks captain Lucanio Am praised the forwards for setting up a win as a try by Rugby World Cup winner Makazole Mapimpi sealed a 24-14 Super Rugby victory for the table-topping Durban side over their rivals, the Stormers, in a South African Super Rugby derby on Saturday. We'll also take you around the world in 60, starting in London, where England prop Joe Marler has been handed a 10-week suspension by a disciplinary panel after he grabbed opposing captain Alan Wynne-Jones' groin during his side's victory over Wales in the Six Nations last weekend. In news from Manchester, the UK anti-doping agency is poised to launch an investigation into allegations that a member of Tyson Fury's team offered a farmer £25,000 to provide a false alibi after the heavyweight champion failed a drugs test in 2015. And in Los Angeles, NFL players have ratified a new collective bargaining agreement with the league's team owners that will see major changes to the sport.
Yeah, the Casalaga World Football Report is here. It kicks off in Bulawayo, where violence marred the Casalaga Challenge Cup as former Borsal coach Peter de Jong made a triumphant return to Barberfield's, guiding league champions FC Platinum to an impressive win over Highlanders to retain the season-opening trophy for the third season running. On the continent, former Kaizer Chiefs assistant coach Patrick Mabedi says if he were in charge of the team, he wouldn't play Mamelodi-bound George Maluleka in the remaining games of the season, with Chiefs and Sundowns locked in a tussle for the title. In the Premier League, Virgil van Dijk says he would be gutted if the coronavirus outbreak stops Liverpool fans watching the team win the league title for the first time in 30 years. And on the continent, La Liga president Javier Tebas is convinced the top flight season in Spain will be completed, even if it is at the expense of Euro 2020.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
We always start on the home front, and news is that Zimbabwe Cricket and Cricket Ireland have agreed to postpone the planned 6-match men's series between the two sides that was scheduled to be played in Zimbabwe next month. While there are no current Irish government travel restrictions or prohibitions relating to Zimbabwe, the two governing bodies believe the risk posed by travel and the fast-changing nature of the coronavirus pandemic required a prudent and safety-first approach to protect the health of players, coaching staff and fans. And just taking a look, Barry, at the global trend and now continental trend, we have seen stuff coming out of Kenya, stuff coming out of South Africa, Rwanda, etc. A lot of people now calling off major sporting events. They just can't take the risk of having large numbers of people in one place.
Certainly, and in truth, it's the right thing to do. And there seems to be almost a playbook, a way in which things are happening, whereby firstly, with the first reported cases, there's a bit of quarantine, and then secondly, there's a slowing down of public gatherings, and then borders are shut. So I think in truth, they made the right decision not to carry on with the tour.
Well, at least they managed to have a little jaunt into Victoria Falls, taking the sides of one of the 7 wonders of the world. So good on them for doing that. They can at least tick something off their tour to Zimbabwe. That is, of course, the county sides. And the county sides, Derbyshire and Durham, they, of course, have decided to cut short their tour and they are out of the country. And it's a bit of a blow to local cricket fans. And we caught up with a renowned sports journalist, Mehluli Sivanda, who is based in Bulawayo. Sivanda says the cancellation of games in Bulawayo is a blow to cricket in the city, which is looking forward to some cricket action.
Well, it is a big loss for the community, for the cricket loving community of Bulawayo, because not much cricket is being played in Bulawayo at the moment. Last international cricket in Bulawayo is way back as July 2018 when Pakistan came to Bulawayo, and then now Derbyshire have had to cancel their tour and go back home. It is such a massive loss. They only played like one game in Bulawayo, that is a T20 match against Zimbabwe Select, and then they've had to go back home because of concerns relating to the coronavirus. The people of Bulawayo are looking forward to watching this cricket action out at Queen Sports Club, but now that we have nothing, we don't even know when we can get cricket action here in Bulawayo. So this was a chance for young and upcoming players like Wesley Matebere and Milton Shumba, who have just come from the under 19 setup, who are rising into the national setup. It was an opportunity for them to face quite opposition in the form of Derbyshire and Durham. Now that the matches have been called off, it is such a loss for them, because Zimbabwe A, we know that there's not much activity in terms of Zimbabwe A. There's not they've not played matches in ages. So there's a chance for Matebere and Milton Shumba to really, and even Tatiana Marumani, the young lad from Falcon College, it was a chance for him, for these young boys to really face some quite opposition in the form of Derbyshire.
Now, as the coronavirus crisis escalated in the United Kingdom, the British government decided to suspend indefinitely all sporting activities and restrict movement, while the England and Wales Cricket Board, the ECB, had to ask the England cricket team to return home from the tour of Sri Lanka last week. With uncertainty around potential travel disruption and in line with the advice they received from their government and governing body, Derbyshire and Durham decided to prematurely conclude their Zimbabwe tour as a precautionary measure. And Barry, the loss isn't just for the fans out in Bulawayo, who have been starved of international cricket action. They were looking forward to this. They were chomping at the bit. They wanted to go back. The Zimbabwe Select sides that were chosen against very decent opposition in terms of 2 county cricket sides that were in the country. But the loss is also for potential up-and-coming Zimbabwe cricketers who had an eye on the full chevron side, who have been denied an opportunity to showcase their skills.
Absolutely, and some of the names were mentioned by Mehluli there in that report, who did a phenomenal job in talking about the losses. And I agree with you, the loss to the likes of Wesley Matebere, your Milton Shumas, your Tadiwanashe Marumani, those players who would have had a chance, a shout to look at where they fare in the first class setup, that has been denied them, and it's a crying shame. However, we understand.
And even some of the players, Barry, from Chevron's squads gone past, guys like Peter Joseph Moore, they were looking forward to this, to stake a claim and say, hey guys, remember me, I'm still around. He was hoping to put in some decent performances, and he's been denied that. And it's a crying shame for Zimbabwe, because we don't get a lot of international cricket action, and God knows that our players need that. The likes of Wesley Matebere, he's now broken into the full Chevron squad, and he had a very promising outing out in Bangladesh. There's a lot of hope that's being pinned on the shoulders of the young man, and so competition of this nature would just have helped him get a bit of game time, some decent first-class action under his belt.
Another aspect that is a little disappointing is the fact that, this was the first time that we've seen the ECB and ZC having official relationships and relations after a long, long time. And I think it's a thawing of those relationships. And one would have wanted for that the series to go through without a hitch, to be absolutely seamless, and that would have seen us developing further our relationship with the ECB, but it's been denied to us.
It's been denied to us. Get in touch with us here at ZiFM Sport. The show is for you, the show that's for the fans, so you can have your say, your way on 0731 168 045. That number again, 0731 168 045. That platform, strictly WhatsApp. You can also follow and interact with us at ZiFM Sport on Twitter as well as Facebook. And remember, Alois Bunjira, Barry Benandi, Mark Pozzo, Chris Gray, Sean Tafirinika, myself, Mike Madoda, all very active on Twitter. Just simply search for our names. Coming up, we give you a local sports news roundup. We got some netball news, bodybuilding, as well as news out of the Sports and Recreation Commission.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport. Z.
Let's give you a local sports news wrap, starting with a netball where Correctional Queen's goal shooter Tafadzwa Mawango's Netball World Cup experiences are bearing fruit after shooting her side to a 71-33 victory over Air Force side Falcon Queens at Manyami Air Base in the headlining match of the Rainbow Netball Amateur League on Saturday. Now, the tall shooter scooped the Golden Hand Award with 51 shots. The prison side physical training coach Edward Zamira commended Mawango, acknowledging that the gem has made a remarkable improvement. Over to bodybuilding, where a number of bodybuilding contests will make a welcome return after several years of absence due to a number of factors ranging from apathy, minimal stakeholder engagement and support, and lacking of funding, among other reasons. According to the National Federation of Zimbabwe Bodybuilding and Fitness Secretary General Quiet Shanghai, the association is not stopping at making
sure... Was that a cough and a sniff, Barry?
No, it was just a cough. It was just a cough, okay? Don't add a sniff. You're creating symptoms, you see. No problem, Yago.
Okay.
No problem, Yago.
I'll keep quiet.
Don't test this. Anyway, Quiet Shanghai says the association is not stopping at making sure the yesteryear contests return. Shanghai says the federation will also go a gear up and ensure that they introduce more unique competitions before year end. Let's end it on an administrative note where the Sports and Recreation Commission will set stringent requirements for local athletes and sports teams intending to make international sporting tours as one of the measures to ensure that the safety of local athletes due to the coronavirus pandemic. As the global sporting world has been thrown into disarray following the continued spread of the coronavirus, the issue of the deadly virus was naturally part of the agenda of the country's sports regulatory body, held its quarterly meeting with all national sports associations in Harare on Saturday.
From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
Super Rugby leads in our international sports news roundup. Now, Sharks captain Lucanio praised the forwards for setting up the win as a try by Rugby World Cup winner Makazole Mapimpi sealed a 24-14 Super Rugby victory over the table-topping Durban side over the Stormers in a South African Super Rugby derby on Saturday. His score, 1 minute from time, followed two penalties by fly half Kerwin Bosch that turned a 14-13 deficit on 69 minutes into a 10-point triumph at King's Park. Let's hear from Lucanio
First of all, I want to thank our fans for coming through. It was a great crowd. Today I think it was a tough game, but credit to our forwards. I think they gave us the forward ball and they won us the game. It's always like that playing against local teams, the local rivals. We know each other, and it's quite competitive and interesting. So I think once again we pulled it off today with effort from the forwards and converting the opportunities that you got.
Now, Mikey, two important components of rugby are possession and territory. If you can dominate those, you've got a good chance of winning the game, and the Sharks certainly did that.
Absolutely, they did that, Barry. I mean, 2/3 in both possession and territory. That means that you've got the territory and the possession, enough possession to hurt your rivals. And it's also credit to the Stormers that despite them having less of the ball and less of the territory, they were able to put points on the board. Absolutely. And they were able to put themselves themselves in a winning position in the 69th minute. But what the Sharks did very well, Barry, was that at the set piece and at the breakdown, they were able to get an edge over the Stormers. In fact, the Stormers had been expected to dominate at the set pieces, but the Sharks came up with a game plan, and they were able to more than match the Stormers. And then at the breakdown, that's where the Sharks really had an edge. Yeah. They had numbers, and they just swarmed the Stormers completely off the ball. And so that is what set up their victory. And it's a good one for the Sharks, because they've managed to come to the fore. We all thought at the start of the season, and even before the season started, we all thought that the Stormers would be the leading team, South African side. And then, especially after the Stormers, remember they registered, it was an impressive 17 or 24-0 victory of the Hurricanes.
For sure, in
the opening match.
Exactly,
they blanked out the Hurricanes, and we all thought, you know what?
And they went, what was it, 3 or 4 games unbeaten?
Yeah, absolutely. And we thought the Stormers are the real deal, but the Sharks have been getting the job done quietly and effectively. And now looks like they may be the side, actually, that may carry the hopes and the aspirations of South African rugby in this competition.
Is this a case of the Stormers only having one way to play? Is this another case of you need to have that other way? Because they were found out, you said that we expected them to try and dominate the set pieces. They were found out in those stakes and weren't able to engage another gear to try and then find a way past the Sharks.
Yeah, listen, the Stormers in recent seasons have got this physical edge.
Sure.
They are a heart and effort sort of team. They have a robust defense, but that wasn't able to come to the fore versus the Sharks. The Sharks just seemed to have that extra gear, and once those two pieces of their play didn't fall or come into play or didn't benefit them as much as they've done in recent weeks in the competition, the Sharks were always looking like the side that was going to win this one in the last 10 minutes. And so I think with sort of like also the injuries that they've had in recent weeks, the likes of Siya Kolisi, etc., they've been out. Those sort of injuries, Barry, to key players have also meant that they haven't been able to field their strongest side for the last month or so.
And you're always going to struggle if you miss that caliber of player. And speaking of the Stormers, let's hear from their captain, Red, Stephen Kitshoff, who was disappointed with the loss.
Both teams pitched up on the day. It was a physical battle. Guys worked really hard for each other, and Sharks scored a nice try towards the end there. Ourselves and the Sharks really pitch up and try and play good rugby, entertaining rugby, and try and get the fans engaged into the game, and just taking that momentum from the World Cup and try and build on it.
All right, let's look at the rest of your Super Rugby results. The Brumbies too strong for the Waratahs in the Australian derby, 47-14. That one ended in favour of the Brumbies. The Reds making it quite simple against the Bulls. They won 41-17. The Crusaders doing what they know how to do best, winning. They won away from home, 49-14 against the Sunwolves. And then the Blues too strong for the Lions, 43-10. That game ended. And the Hurricanes prevailing over the Chiefs, 27-24. Let's run through the standings very quickly for you in the South African Conference. The Sharks are out in front. They've already qualified for those knockout stages. They are followed by the Stormers. In the New Zealand Conference, the Crusaders are out in front, followed by the Blues. And then in the Australian Conference, it's the Brumbies out in front. They've already qualified for the knockout stages, and they're followed by the Rebels. Let's give you the overall standings. Out in front on 24 points are the Sharks. In second position, the Brumbies of Australia on 23 points. Those two teams have qualified. In third are the Crusaders on 23 points. The Blues are in fourth with 22 points, and the Chiefs are in fifth position with 19 points, while in sixth position the Hurricanes occupy that position with 17 points. Super Rugby organisers have decided to suspend the competition indefinitely after the weekend's games due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Hello, my name is Iban Etzewith. I play for the Stormers and the Springboks. You're listening to ZiFM.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Right, let's give you the rest of your international sports news. Taking off in London, where England prop Joe Marler has been handed a 10-week suspension by a disciplinary panel after he grabbed opposing captain Alan Wynne-Jones' groin during his side's victory over Wales in the Six Nations last weekend. After just 10 minutes of the Twickenham game, a melee broke out when Wales had a try disallowed for a George North knock-on, and the incident was caught on camera. Marler was cited last Monday Saturday over the incident and has now been sentenced to a 10-week ban. In news from Manchester, the UK anti-doping agency is poised to launch an investigation into allegations that a member of Tyson Fury's team offered a farmer £25,000 to provide a false alibi after the heavyweight champion failed a drugs test in 2015. Fury, the WBC heavyweight champion, and his cousin Yui both blamed their positive tests for nandrolone on eating uncastrated wild boar or ingesting contaminated supplements.
What? What, Michael? Are you making this up?
Well, both blamed their positive test for nandrolone on eating uncastrated wild boar. Barry?
So wild boar has to be castrated. Who's going to castrate it?
According to Tyson Fury.
It's a wild boar.
Well, they blamed it on that uncastrated wild boar or ingesting contaminated supplements, citing two statements from the Preston farmer Martin Carefoot, saying he had given them the meat in their defense. However, Carefoot now says he provided two false statements after being offered a financial inducement by a member of Fury's team to lie. And we touched down in Los Angeles in the United States of America, where NFL players have ratified a new collective bargaining agreement with the league's team owners, which will see major changes to the sport, including an expanded playoff field and an extra game each season. The new deal, which runs into 2030, means playoffs will be increased from 12 to 14 teams from the 2020 season. The regular season will increase from 16 to 17 games per season in 2021.
The Castle Lager Premier Soccer League report on ZiFM Sport.
Castle Lager World Football Report brought to you by our proud partners Castle Lager. And violence marred the Castle Challenge Cup as former Bossa coach Peter de Jong made a triumphant return to Barbourfield's guiding champions FC Platinum to a convincing 2-0 win over Highlanders to retain the season opening trophy on Saturday. The match, however, provided yet another bad advertisement for local football as ugly scenes threatened to bring the encounter to a premature end. Let's hear from winning coach Peter de Jong of FC Platinum.
Only in one word, was a football show. We showed it today, football. From the first to second until the last moment. We played it very well. We started very aggressive. High pressure, create a lot of chances. Highlanders had total no answer on the way how we did the football. First half 2-0 was zelfs possible een higher score. Second half, same. Lot of control, lot of possibilities for a third goal. And I'm happy. It's the right way for football to play.
It was an entertaining game at Barbourfield Stadium where FC Platinum once again stepped to the fore as the team to beat. And forward Silas Songani announced his return to local football with a brace.
Yeah, I'm really happy about our team. You know, it's all about teamwork. It's not all about Silas. I'm happy also to score 2 goals. You know, it's been a while I didn't play in football in Zimbabwe. You know, maybe it's first 5.5 years, you know, I didn't play in football in Zimbabwe, so I'm really happy to be back here. I think it's important for our team also, and it's important for me also. It's my first medal here in Zimbabwe, you know, so I'm really happy about it. I'm looking forward to get more.
A memorable return for Silas Songani, you know, coming to the fore there for FC Platinum. His first goal, an out-of-this-world free kick, and then, of course, the second one finishing off a move that was well orchestrated, and, of course, a perfect Chikwende at the very heart of it, and Silas Songani having the honour to finish off that blistering counter-attack. So it finished 2-0 in favour of champions FC Platinum, who were playing the winners of the Chibuku Super Cup in Highlanders. And Alois Munjira is in the studio, and, of course, he's our football pundit here at ZiFM Sport. Alois, you've got to say that Highlanders well beaten on the side. 2-0 may actually flutter Bosso.
Yeah, I think FC Platinum are a very good side. You know, master stroke signing Silas Songani, always been a good player, and now he comes back, and I can imagine how far they can go with him. You know, he started very well with that kind of confidence. You know, he can only get better, and it's actually a sure sign to other clubs that one is FC Platinum might just go for 4 out of 4.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. They might just do it.
And I think, Barry, you and I were at Barber Fields this past weekend, and I think a lot of people we had the privilege to be sitting with those that were supporting FC Platinum and, of course, some Highlanders fans, but everyone to a man was convinced that this FC Platinum side is the team to beat.
Absolutely. There's no question, and you'd have to be someone who doesn't really follow football to deny that, because albeit that we must admit that it was a very tactical match, it was very enjoyable to watch because you could see the shape of the teams, you could see what the coaches were trying to do, but you could see that one team had the upper hand and that team was wearing green. It was FC Platinum. So kudos to them, and also I agree with Alois, I agree with you. This is the team to beat. Yeah, team to beat. And, some of the players that they've managed to add, the likes of Perfect Chikwende, Stanley Ngala, those two, the combination up front, Alois, is going to cause headaches to many a defense.
Yeah, very good team. We saw Perfect Chikwende, last match of the season when he volleyed that winner. And we have always said his technique is top-notch, very good player. Now with the addition of Stanley Ngala, it can actually be a perfect match, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they can actually develop that combination. Remember, we've always talked about combinations. Yeah. If that combination clicks, because this is a combination of two very able players that are very mobile as well, both of them. Exactly. If that clicks, then it's a problem.
Do you know what I found very exciting to watch was that in that, and I'm glad you mentioned the Caps game at the end of the season last season. Perfect Chikwende was the arrowhead. He was right at the top. He had to stay at the top. In this sense, with Stanley Ngala joining, Stanley Ngala then stays as the arrowhead, but Perfect Chikwende can pop up in any sort of areas. Yeah. He can play between the lines. He can join and add numbers in defense and midfield, and also join in front. And he was doing that. Exactly.
He did that very well. And the fact, I think, Barry, that Highlanders didn't have a defensive midfielder. They had ball players in the middle of the park. Ngobizita Masuku. They had Divine Mendelere. They had, as well as Brian Banda. And those guys just didn't have the defensive attributes that were needed to track Perfect Chikwende.
Not at all. And he would have been difficult to track for anyone. But as you quite rightly point out, they didn't have the defensive discipline to at least break down play and make sure that Perfect Chikwende wasn't pulling the strings. As soon as he was playing, FC Platinum played.
Okay, let's also get the post-match thoughts of Highlanders coach Mark Harrison.
We didn't turn up. The team didn't turn up today. All the work we've done through pre-season so far, the way they were looking good. Today they just didn't show up. Probably only 2 of the 11 who started could walk away with any sort of pride in their performance, but the other 9 was well below par. So we've got a lot of work to do to make things happen.
I would probably say that it was the first match of the season, and you probably not worried too much about it.
Look, I mean, it's not life and death today. It's a cup game. It would have been nice to win it. We wanted to win it, but we didn't perform. So you don't win if you don't perform. But we've got a few weeks before we kick off. We've got 34 league games, so we've got to keep pushing and keep working.
Where did it go wrong for you, coach?
Our midfield didn't function.
Right, that is Mark Harrison, the Highlanders coach, speaking to the members of the media straight after the game. Alois, he says that his team didn't come to the party. Only 2 players, he reckons, walked away with any credit from that performance. And Highlanders have got a lot of work to do. And I think this game probably coming at the right time for Highlanders and for Mark Harrison. If they have ambitions and designs to challenge at the very top of the Castle Premier Soccer League, they know that the standard has been set by the defending champions.
Yeah, I think this was a good game for them. A very, very good litmus test, and they now know where they are, when it comes to the barometer, where they are, because FC Platinum are the champions. And now when you look at them last season, towards the end of the season, and what they produced in this game, you can actually see that they've moved a step higher. So Mark Harrison needs to actually understand that if he is to challenge for the honours, or if he is to go anywhere close to that, he has to lift up a gear, because now they've been shown where they are. They are not at the same level with FC Platinum at the moment.
Yeah, and yes, not at the same level, but I'm hoping that he's also honest with himself, Mark Harrison. Yes, he talked about the players, but I would like to also, he needs to look in the mirror, because his selection, I think he got it absolutely wrong. He should have.
Where do you reckon that he got it wrong with his selection?
Well, number one, it was very clear to see, after about 20 minutes, you had read the game and you were sitting right next to me. You pointed out the issues that he had. Number one, he had no issues. He had no energy in midfield because of the players that you're talking about. He had ball players who play the ball slightly slower. Ahead of them, them, they had Mitchell Kachairo, who's a little long in the tooth, and then of course they had Mkokeli Dube in front of him as well. So they didn't have any energy in that midfield. He should have realized that, and at halftime made the necessary changes, because the amount of energy that Perfect Chikwende was delivering and the mobility of that FC Platinum midfield was giving them problems, and it needed to be corrected. He waited way too long to ring the changes, so his selection was wrong, and the time at which he made the changes was wrong as well, because when he made the changes, then they were matching each other. We were watching a football match.
And I thought Tinashe Makanda, when he came in, he did very well. In place of Mkokeli Dube, all of a sudden they had a bit of fizz about them. Prince Dube was able to link up with him, and I think Prince Dube is certainly one of the players that can walk away with credit in this game. Absolutely. And I think the only problem was that because there was nothing behind him, there was no supply, he ended up trying to do a bit too much. And in the process, he was now, of course, overplaying, he was now overrunning, overdriving with the ball, etc. And so that was a bit of a problem. But I just don't see Mitchell Kachairo being one of the answers for Highlanders in attack. He lacked the energy, he lacked the drive, that an experienced player is supposed to bring to a young side like Highlanders. And for me, I think if Highlanders is to do well going forward, let them stick to the team that they finished the season 100%. With. That team was playing well, and then let's see what these older players can do, can bring value, but they can't just be thrust into the starting 11 at the expense of players like Tinashe Makanda, who finished the season so well.
Can I borrow Alois's favorite phrase? We spoke about it. Yeah. We did. We said it. Yeah. We talked about the fact that Highlanders side that ended the season was quick in transition going forward. Keep that side together.
Well, the one thing that we certainly must speak about is the ugly incidents that occurred at Barberfield Stadium that marred what should have been an impressive afternoon of football in the City of Kings.
Hi, I'm Clemens Matau, chicken in midfielder. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
And I think it's fair to say, Alois, that violence, hooliganism has got no place at all in our football. And the scenes that we witnessed at Barberfield Stadium, an embarrassment for Highlanders, because it's their fans who were at the heart of the trouble, and an embarrassment for the league sponsors as well, who were, listen, they were there. They were there in attendance. And for them, it should have been a celebration of the two major cups that they sponsored, the league as well as the Chibuku Super Cup. But in the end, it was a shambles.
Yeah, it's very sad. We've always talked about violence in football in Zimbabwe, and the sad part is, in most cases, is happening there. Let's be honest. We don't want to beat about the bush here. Most of the violence that has been happening in Zimbabwean football has been happening at Barberfield. I think they need to look at themselves in the mirror and see where they are, what they are doing, to Zimbabwean football. I'm not happy that is what happened, because the hooliganism and worse still, that is the stadium that is being renovated for homologation. Yes. And what do we do? And we actually coming out ourselves and say, hold on, we don't care. Let's just vandalize it. It's still okay. I don't know where this oil is going, and it's very, very, very disappointing.
And the trouble spot, Barry, of course, is the Soweto end at Barberfield Stadium, because if you take a look at Mpangweni, there was nothing, maybe a few missiles that were thrown from there, chilled. But very chilled. And then, of course, the Mpilo end was housing mostly the FC Platinum supporters. And you take a look at the main stand at Barberfield, so it was the Soweto end. Do you think that we've come to a time in Zimbabwe football where we must talk about the corrective measures that must be taken? Because there was a time in European football where violence of that nature was also predominant, but we are talking about 50 years ago. We are talking about 60s, we're talking about 70s. And how did Europe react? They reacted by erecting those fences or those wire mesh behind the goalposts, and you still see them in some of the stadiums. Camp Nou has got them. You got the German stadiums have them behind goal, where it's see-through. You can see what's happening, but if you throw anything or you try and do anything, it certainly blocks you.
It gets caught.
Do you think we should be thinking of that? Because it's one thing to say, hey, you know what, we should do this, we should do that, but should we be actually taking proper measures, Barry, that to ensure that if someone does throw something, it's not going to get on the field of play?
A big and vociferous yes. That would be point number one. I would certainly erect those take measures of that nature, and I think that's a fair suggestion, to have that mesh in front of the fans, because it then avoids whatever is thrown getting onto onto the field of play. The second one, I believe, is that with the police being there and policing, there needs to be now arrests. It needs to be, because it's vandalism to public property and reckless endangerment of everyone else in the stadium. So under some statute, find something that makes sure that if you go to a football match with the intention of causing violence, you're not going home after that, you're going into the slammers. And that makes people then reflect and think about it.
How well does it work if we are not investing in the technology, Alois, to actually accurately identify the individuals? Because it's one thing to arrest an individual, and it's another thing for it to hold up in the court of law. To get a conviction where you are saying, you know what, there is the evidence. We have it on video. They do that in Europe, for example, where they're able to pick you out and say, you know what, you are the one who threw that. You are the one who said this. You know, shouldn't we be looking, especially now with our facilities being upgraded? Surely those are some of the things we should be looking at. Golden opportunity to say, guys, let's make sure now that we have that CCTV now in our stadiums.
You see, Mike, the problem that we have in Zimbabwe, we've got so much self-pity, and we always look at ourselves and say, we are Zimbabwe, we don't have ABC, and some of the things that are so cheap and affordable, we go over them, we just step on them because we just have this attitude that and we overthink things, and we actually have this intellectual mind that always thinks that shortcuts are, we can get away with shortcuts. That's my biggest problem. We don't thrive to actually look at things. You know, we go step by step and do things. Attention to detail. We don't have that. Like you say, this is the perfect opportunity. Those CCTV cameras, when you look back and actually think about it, this is an investment, actually. But they're not so expensive as people might think. People will tell you now, you are economy. You see some people will start talking about economy. You know, that's what we do. We hide behind this thing that is the economy.
That is called the economy.
This excuse. But this is actually a perfect opportunity. We need, it's not a lot. Two cameras that are just facing each other. That the other one is going 3/4 of the stand, the other one is overlapping, going 3/4 of the stand, and there you have it.
I'm sure there's security companies, Barry, that would be able to put that sort of thing in place in a matter of hours. In truth,
easy,
guys. The city of Harare that owns some of these stadiums has just put up cameras at the corner of Jason Moyo and 4th Street. Cameras are available. They can do it. They have the capacity to do it. It's just the will.
The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
All right, now former Kaizer Chiefs assistant coach Patrick Mabedi says if he were in charge of the team, he wouldn't play George Maluleka in the remaining games. Chiefs announced earlier this week that Maluleka had turned down a new deal to sign a pre-contract with Mamelodi Sundowns. With Chiefs and Sundowns neck and neck for the ABSA Premiership title with only 8 matches remaining, the Soweto Giants can't afford many more slip-ups. Mabedi, who's a legend of both Chiefs and in Malawi, says he wouldn't play Mido because it would protect both the player and the club. Michael, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, this one is it's a tricky one because especially with the teams locked neck and neck at the top, and then the teams to play each other. Any sort of mistake by the player can have a very adverse reaction from the fans. Anything can be seen as a lack of commitment. Anything can be seen as, oh, you know what, he's already dancing to the tune out in Pretoria, as opposed to us. And questions will be asked by fans. You know, fans are very fickle, very emotional. They'll be questioning his loyalty. But for me, personally, aside from that risk, I would still pick him. If he's the best man for the job, he's been playing well. He has been one of Kaizer Chiefs' best players. Unless I see a noticeable drop in effort and commitment, I'll continue to pick him.
Mike opening his answer with, it's a difficult one. Mabedi said exactly the same thing, strangely.
I'm talking about the difficulty in terms of how the fans will see it. Sure. As a coach, that's why I said, but if I was a coach, unless I see a noticeable drop in effort and commitment, I'll continue to pick him.
Mabedi had this to say, and he was telling kickoff.com, he says, Aish, it's a difficult one, hey? Mina, I would need to make sure that you find a balance at the same time. But if you are in a situation like this, it's difficult to take chances because you don't know what's going to happen. Alois, this is and take note, this is one of the best players this season for Kaizer Chiefs. You are in a title run-in with the same team that he's headed towards. Do you play it?
Yeah, it's tricky. It is tricky, but I'll go with what Mike said. You know, this is professional football.
Yep.
You know, we have seen players in this situation before. This is not the first time. You know, and George is a professional. He's a professional footballer. People eyes on him, and he also wants to.
Also, he's gonna want to win the championship.
The medal.
Yeah.
He wants, as a footballer, you want that medal. What is it gonna? What does it give him? If Mamelodi Sundowns finishes second, they're still gonna be in the Champions League anyway.
Yeah.
So they would rather finish second, and he gets his winner's medal.
I still think, though, that the timing of this announcement was very strange.
Yeah.
For it to come out now, especially with the two teams at the top, I think, you know, they could have done better to just keep this information under wraps. To say, you know what, we'll only reveal this at the end of the season.
I agree with that.
I think the situation was Kaizer Chiefs were pushing for him to sign, and he didn't. So I think they did their digging. They fished around to see why exactly he is not signing, because his contract was expiring. Sure. And they were pushing for him to sign, and he was not signing.
But you see, I think the thing is that you can have press embargoes where you agree that, okay, we're going to embargo this information until the end of the season, and nobody's going to publish this no matter what.
Yeah, it is. But the other issue that I wanted to highlight, I think also Patrick Mabedi as a coach, he was not supposed to say what he said. Now he has thrown this thing all out in the public domain, and reactions and emotions now are going to come from he was supposed to be
already there, though.
Yes, but for the coach now to say, now he's sitting with his coach, with his head coach. His head coach is sitting here.
No, but he's a former assistant.
He's a former.
Coach. Yeah, former.
He's left.
He's left.
Now the whole situation it throws out emotions.
There's important news coming out of the PSL in South Africa, where PSL chairman Irvin Khoza, the Iron Duke, has announced that the outcome of the emergency meeting held this afternoon, with football in the ABSA Premiership suspended indefinitely. The league, including all member clubs, convened at PSL headquarters to discuss the declaration of President Cyril Ramaphosa that the coronavirus pandemic is a national disaster.
All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles at home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
Let's wrap it up with some updates out of Europe, starting in England. Virgil van Dijk says he would be gutted if the coronavirus outbreak stops Liverpool fans watching the team win the league title for the first time in 30 years. The Premier League has been suspended until the 4th of April, with Liverpool 25 points clear at the top of the table. Despite the uncertainty of how or if the season will be completed, Van Dijk has pledged to bring the title to Liverpool fans. We'll be hearing the thoughts of Alois and Barry momentarily. We can also tell you news out of England that Bruno Fernandes has capped his impressive start to life in Manchester United by being named as the Premier League's Player of the Month for February. Over to Italy. The Italian Football Federation is planning to ask UEFA to postpone the 2020 European Championship so that they can complete play in Serie A by the 30th of June. And in Spain, La Liga President Javier Tebas is convinced the top flight season in Spain will get finished, even if it is at the expense of Euro 2020. So the first one, Barry, Virgil van Dijk, correct? It would be a tragedy, isn't it, if the season, for example, had to be completed behind closed doors and there were no fans to witness the trophy celebrations.
It will be a travesty of justice, and I think that the one thing the fans have been looking forward to is that time when that monkey gets off their back and the 30-year jinx is broken. This is the time, and they can't celebrate it.
Alois, there's increasing talk that Euro 2020 will be postponed to 2021 to allow the leagues to finish the season in June and July.
Yeah, I think it's only fair. You know, I'm not a Liverpool fan, honestly, guys. This can be fair. This is like 2 games left that they've got, so that they can clinch this league. So I think Europe, the European bosses are doing the correct, making a correct decision here. Push it forward. Let the the countries finish their leagues and give the rightful winners their trophies. This can be contained. Coronavirus will be contained very soon. So let's just do it.
Let's do it. We've got to do one thing. We've got to leave. We'll catch you tomorrow. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.